We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football, and that includes defensive tackles. Today, we cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. If you want to donate, support this channel through a donation. Hit the $ where you make a comment, and I'll get to you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Everybody, and I mean everybody, is welcome into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls later in the show. We are slipping in this live show before your precious Selection Sunday starts. Well, the selection show starts in about 4 hours from now. So we are sliding this in. This is going to be a very unpopular live show. Not a lot of you are going to stick around. You got to watch your basketball. You got to watch your conference championship games. You got to get prepped for the selection show. I get it. But because we are the most unpopular college football YouTube channel in the country, I figured it would not hurt to push this in right now. In fact, it goes along with the show that we are doing about college football. The title of this show is The Selection Sunday Hitting the ACC Hard. Reality will rush in new realignment way before the 2030 season year arrives. Now, if you look at the title screen, I'll put it back up here. That is Mr. Bubba Cunningham. And we were saying with a couple months left to go in 2024, we started saying that 2025 was going to be the year of Bubba. That quote that you are reading on the title screen is from August 3rd, 2023. 17 months ago. 16 months ago, a lot of schools, a lot of individuals are going to have to make decisions about where their future looks like, he said. Bubba Cunningham. Andrea Adelson, ESPN. I don't see this configuration lasting in perpetuity. That he's talking about the ACC. That comment was made August 3rd, 2023. If he said that statement August 3rd, 2023, my goodness, what is he saying today? Inside the ivory towers of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Think about it. Just think about it. Just think about it. And we're going to go through that article. We're going to go through that article on August 3rd, 2023. But just think about it. Bubba Cunningham said that when he came out and he was upset about how Florida State was handling the business in public. Right? Bubba Cunningham was upset that Florida State went in the courts and sued the ACC. Now, the ACC sued back. And in fact, the ACC said they put their suit in the day before. And UNC did not vote for the ACC to sue Florida State. Bubba Cunningham, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. He played all of that with politics in mind, not only within the ACC, but in the Big Ten and the SEC. We'll circle back on that at the back end of the monologue. But think about if that is what Bubba Cunningham said August 3rd, 2023. A lot of schools, a lot of individuals are going to have to make decisions about what their future looks like, he said. I don't see this configuration lasting in perpetuity. And now, today, on March 16th, Florida State and Clemson got a massive victory. A settlement that happened in 2025. The settlement actually happened in 2025 at a number of $165 million. And the ACC has to accept the check if you give it to them. And you get your media rights. You own your media rights. You own your media rights at the moment you exit the conference. Massive victory for the Seminoles and the Tigers. And you got Bubba Cunningham saying what he said on August 3rd, 2023. Well, you got to believe he is saying that tenfold today. And what about today? Today is Selection Sunday. today is Selection Sunday, where the ACC is battling, hoping, praying that they get 4 teams into the dance. And you've got Mr. Greg Sankey. Everywhere you look. Everywhere you look. Everywhere you look, Sankey is talking about we should get 14 SEC teams into the playoffs. We should get 14 into the dance. 14. He's hammering away on that number 14. Now, most people believe the SEC is going to get 12 or 13. More than 11. Probably not 14. Let me know your comment. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section with your phone calls later on. But the SEC is throwing in commitment after commitment money into the basketball programs. And this reality is hitting the ACC hard today. There is something that Bubba Cunningham said in that article August 3rd, 2023 with Andrea Adelson that I think he probably wishes he could take back. One little part of it about having to do with money. We are going to talk about that. But North Carolina played cloak and dagger in 23, 24. They're doing it again in 25. Anybody who thinks that North Carolina is not interested, is motivated to get out of the ACC as early as it benefits that institution, people don't think that is going on right now. They're absolutely crazy. Absolutely nuts. Listen to what Bubba Cunningham has been telling you. Just because he got on Florida State's case doesn't mean he believes the ACC is long for this world, the way it is constructed right now. But before we get into the North Carolina cloak and dagger, and there has been cloak and dagger, and there will continue to be cloak and dagger, and it's going to be looking a little bit of a difference, Tar Heel cloak and dagger in 25 and 26 than it was in 23. Before we get to all that, we're going to be talking some football. We're going to be going through PFF, Pro Football Focus, top defensive tackles. And you're going to recognize a lot of those names. A lot of those names. Big-time players. Replacing some big-time players, like in Michigan, for just one example. Clemson, you got a dude. You've got an absolute stud. Clemson, can they improve on against the run offense of teams in the ACC, because Clemson's got their doors blown off versus the run. They've got to shore that up, and I think they're going to. And then there's one big transfer on the list of the top defensive tackles. And of course, I think a lot of you know what program got that big old transfer at the D tackle position. You guessed it right. The Red Raiders, Texas Tech. So we're going to be going over the top defensive tackles, and then we're going to be going over an article that I wanted to get to just because we're going to go into this world real soon. We already are in the world, but it's going to become official if and when the House settlement, House versus NCAA settlement officially happens. The contracts are already out there. In fact, I told this story a couple months ago. Someone gave me a contract in which Georgia Tech football program has used. I'm not going to put it out there for public consumption. A lot of conferences are using different templates, but they all go to the same conclusion. The football teams, the football programs, these new general managers, the head coaches, the athletic directors, they're not going to have much control on player movement, even with these contracts. But what they will be able to control is how much do they get back in their program if the players should want to leave, to go into the portal, to go somewhere else. That is what they want to control, just like a head coach. A head coach leaves, there's going to be some buyout. There's a potential of whatever school that the coach or player is going to. That school is going to dig deep in their pockets and pay the school back. So we're going to go through the player contracts because this is college football's peek around the corner. We're going to give you a little peek because this is going to be a major news story going in to July, August, September, and especially after next year's football season. We are going to be hearing about all types of contracts. Supposedly, none of this is going to be really in public. Like, we're not going to have transparency. It's not going to be like you can look at the NBA roster and their contracts, or Major League Baseball, or NFL football. Supposedly, when we look at the rev share within the Alabama football program, we're not going to be able to see who is getting what. That is my understanding as of today. But again, there's going to be some leaks, a whole lot of rumors, speculation, and some accurate reporting on contracts. So we're going to hit it a little bit today. What are these player contracts looking like right now before the House NCAA settlement occurs on April 7th? And then we're going to talk about it here in late summer during the football season, and especially into next year after this season's over. We're going to be talking a lot of player contracts. And then we're going to get into North Carolina, cloak and dagger. Bubba Cunningham, has he been scheming? Allegedly, yes. Allegedly. Now, let me do a roll call real quick. Again, we're slipping in this live college football show before your college basketball selection Sunday. Okay, I don't want to ruin your Sunday by talking college football, but you guys know how passionate I am about college football. This is where you go to for college football. David Capusta is in the house. Ryan Brooks, Big Gun Shop. Ryan Brooks, LSU. Caleb Ramirez, Bob Swanger. Lee Clinton Moses, Jay Chapman. Daniel Gygax, Mr. Mountaineer, Steel Austin. Utes, Michael Bias. Bobby Hansen, Nick Boardman, MBM. Friends, call me Sean. Steve Moser is in the house. Yep, we split. Minnesota lost 29-1. We missed it by that much. Michael 19th C-Fan is in the house. Mayor McCheese is here. Kerry Gold knows Mr. Seminoles. UNC played it like they play football. They suck. Oh my goodness, Mr. Seminoles. Susan Blur is in the house. Bubba let Florida State and Clemson take the hits. He let them, but he also didn't really have a choice. He did not have a choice. So that's another part where we're going to once again remind everybody. Anthony Carlson, Mr. Spartan, is in the house. Stephen McNeely is in the house. Nathan Campbell is here. Richard Brookins, Stephen McNeely, Morris Simmons, Biggers Bo, Vox Quindaro, Rock Chalk, Jayhawk, Happy Selection Sunday, Flugarians. Edward the Auburn Tiger is in the house. Stormy Cyclone. Carlton Hurdle. The Lady Frogs are rolling. S. Farmer is in the house. My 90, how old is she now? 92-year-old mother is watching on the SEC network Oklahoma versus Arkansas. Women's softball. She's rooting for the Razorbacks. But Oklahoma, when I left her, right when I started this live show, in her bedroom, Oklahoma was up 9-5. The Oklahoma Sooners ladies softball team is number one in the country, of course. They're 25-0. 25-0, the Oklahoma Sooners, and they got the lead 9-5. Okay, let's get to it. We got a lot to go through. Again, we're sliding in this college football YouTube channel. Slided it in before your precious Sunday selection show. Stephen McNeely, 2025 college football fever has already begun. In PATC country, in our community, in our family, yes, it has. Yes, it absolutely has. Thank you so much, Stephen, for becoming a member of our channel for 15 months. 15 months. That is a long time, Mr. McNeely. You are officially knighted, cloak and dagger once again. Thank you so much for your generosity. Again, I know you guys are busy. But I got to talk some football. We have got to talk some football. College football, pro football focus, top 10 returning interior defensive linemen entering the 25 season, and of course, Peter Woods, number one, the Clemson Tigers. Woods spent most of his sophomore season playing out of position, earned a great PFF grade. Over his first 2 years of college football, he ranks as both the highest graded and the most valuable returning Power 4 defensive tackle, according to PFF's wins above average metric. Peter Woods, Clemson, now he's going from edge rusher to defensive tackle. And Clemson needs him to be at the DT. They need him in the interior. They need him to stop the running game of the opponents. Clemson is going to be better this year than they were last year. Last year they made the playoffs. They won the ACC. They're going to be better this year. And one of the big reasons, Peter Woods playing in position. He's going to be playing in position. Number 2, Zane Durant, the Nittany Lions. Pretty small dude, undersized, 6'1", 288. But he's been all he's been doing. All that Durant has been doing is being in the backfield of their opponents. Boy, I got Penn State winning the Big Ten. I've got them in the Final Four. Every time I look at Penn State, look, if they're going to be stopped by an Oregon, by the Buckeyes, by Michigan, by Illinois, by Iowa, somebody is going to have to develop like saying or Dante Moore. I mean, someone's going to have to take a big, huge leap forward in the Big Ten to stop the Penn State Nittany Lions from winning the Big Ten championship in 2025, in my opinion. Number 3, Tim Keenan, Alabama. He's a force, ranked 3rd in the Power 4 interior defensive lineman. And trailing only Graham and Nolan, and they both are going in the first round of the 25 NFL draft. So you got Tim Keenan, number 3 on the list, number 3, and he was the 3rd best one last year, and the top 2 are in the NFL. They're going to be in the NFL. Holy smokes. Tim Keenan, Alabama. Number 4, Christian Miller, Georgia. Broke out of his redshirt sophomore season with the Bulldogs. Ranked among the top 15 Power 4 interior defenders. His 83.9 run defense grade also ranked him in the top 15th. While his 11.2% pass rush ranked him in the top 20. He was good in every facet of the game. He broke out last year. He's going to be a monster this year. Christian Miller, number 4. And here is Lee Hunter. A little bit different because, well, he's the only transfer on the top 10 list. Lee Hunter stays in the Big 12 after moving from UCF to Texas Tech. He leads all FBS interior defenders in run defensive stops over the last 2 years and tackle for loss for no gain. A run stopper at Lubbock, Texas. Raw power, impressive movement skills. He's a major reason why Texas Tech transfer class has drawn so much praise heading in to 2025. Lee Hunter, Texas Tech Red Raider. Number 6, Aaron Graves of Iowa. He's been a dominant pass rusher. He's a senior this year, 12 sacks 2 years ago. If he can continue to improve his strength in the run game, the Iowa native has a potential to climb in the top 5 of this list. A pass rushing interior defensive lineman, Aaron Graves of Iowa, but that's not the only Iowa player in this top 10. Mr. Orange from Iowa State. Graves isn't the only dominant defensive tackle in the state of Iowa. Orange has the size to carry nose tackle at 320 pounds. Dominique Orange, Iowa State. Woo! Over the past 2 seasons, among the top 20 Power 4 interior defenders. Number 8, the Godfather, Mr. Corleone, Dante, Cincinnati. Now he had some issues. He had some health issues last year. Early, I thought he was going to go in the NFL draft, but remember, shortly after the season was over, if I remember correctly, Dante Corleone said he's coming back. He's coming back to Cincinnati for his 5th year. A dominant player in 2022. A dominant player in 2023. Had some blood clots in his lungs last year, but he's coming back. And big time player for the Cincinnati Bearcats. Number 8 on this list. Number 9, Rayshawn Benny. He's replacing Graham and Grant, the 2 great defensive tackles, interior linemen for the Michigan Wolverines. But he earned an 84.4 grade. Incredible athlete, incredible agility. Mr. Benny, Michigan, number 9 on the list. And finally, number 10 from Oklahoma, Brent Venables, Sooners defense. While Grayson Halton may not have an ideal size, once again, an undersized defensive tackle, he's quick. An explosion that helped him earn an 84.2 pass rush grade on the true pass rush snaps over the past 2 seasons. Grayson Halton, the Oklahoma Sooners, and there was one honorable mention, Caleb Banks of Florida. Caleb Banks, 6'5" with long arms, the interior lineman, defensive tackle. Holy smokes, there's still room for improvement in the run game. Got to improve the run game, but Caleb Banks is an honorable mention. Again, put down your comments and thoughts. Let me know why your favorite player did not get into the Pro Football Focus top 10. Let me know that the player should have gotten in there. Who did that list miss? Let me go through some very kind donations, and then we're going to get into player contracts, and then we're going to go into the UNC cloak and dagger before you all get back to your Selection Sunday men's NCAA basketball. Morris Simmons, Mr. Seminole, a new member, early peak cloak and dagger. Thank you, Mr. Morris Simmons. Thank you for being a part of our community for a very long time and now being a new member. Thank you for your generosity. You are officially knighted cloak and dagger. Helmer Hennison, how do you think ESPN came around to offer pro rata to the SEC and Fox not offering the same to the Big Ten? Pros and cons. That is a great question. That is a great question, and I don't know the answer to it. Do not know the answer to it. Now, I do not know there's always, just because you sign a media contract, a media agreement with your media partners, doesn't mean you stop talking for 5-6 years. There has been some adjustments. Like, remember the Big Ten, because of COVID, Fox bought equity into the Big Ten network. The Fox owned 51% of the Big Ten network. Now they own 61% of the Big Ten network, while the Big Ten and the 18 Big Ten schools share an equal slice of the remaining 39%. When that happened, I wonder if some pro rata stuff got moved out of there. I do not know. I'm just speculating. And there has been movement and changes between, they have been debating since they signed that massive new contract. A lot of it being that big tier 1 contract where ABC got CBS's content, SEC content from CBS to ABC, the top games of the week. Ever since that deal was signed, they've been debating about going to 9 conference games. I don't know what the answer to that question. There are definitely pros and cons. Now, again, I will say this. While there is a pro rata, I do not believe the SEC is going to go add schools. I don't think they're going to expand their conference without a wink and a nod from ESPN. Like, ESPN might be contractually obligated to pay full freight for teams 17 and 18. But I think they're going to have, because Sankey and the 16 universities, they want ESPN to continue to be a good partner. And so I think ESPN is probably going to say, sure, go ahead. But also, when you're doing a pro rata, one of the cons, possibly, depending on how you're looking at it, it might be very difficult for ESPN to say, yeah, sure, go expand with 4 teams right now, because that's a lot of money, man. I mean, full freight for 4 universities. But then again, you would subtract what you would be paying them if they stayed in the ACC. But then you're losing the value of the ACC network. There's a lot of pros and cons in there, Helmer. And great question. I apologize, I don't have a good answer. And you do have a history of giving me great questions that I don't have a great answer to. So I do apologize for that, Henderson. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your great questions. I'll do some poking and prodding on that. Stormy Cyclone. Apparently the Big Ten is trying to follow the SEC with all these basketball firings. Thank you for the super chat, Stormy Cyclone. I guess. Excuse me. Iowa Hawkeyes fire their head coach. Of course, the Gophers fire their head coach. Yeah, it sounds like the Gophers are going to go after Colorado State's Nico Medved, head coach of the Colorado State Rams. He grew up in Minnesota, all that stuff. So we'll see what happens there, but it sounds like he's the number one target. The Big Ten, boy, to get to what the SEC is doing right now, that is a lot of work and a lot of money, and I don't think the Big Ten could possibly get there anytime soon. But there's a certain cycle to this, right? There's always going to be a few head coaches fired. I mean, there's only so many wins. Every win, there's a loss in the conference. There's build-up of disappointment. People lose hope. I'm surprised Fred Hoiberg is still at Nebraska. I'm surprised he hasn't been fired yet. Yeah, a lot of Big Ten programs not doing well in men's basketball. Thank you, Stormy. I do much appreciate it for your continued generosity. Helmer Henderson, do you believe the Big Ten has done it better with Fox than SEC has done with ESPN? No and yes. I don't think Fox has done a better job with the Big Ten, but I think the Big Ten's arrangement is better for the Big Ten. Having all these relationships, these multiple major media partners, is a better arrangement for the Big Ten than what the SEC has with ESPN. So a better arrangement. That's the best way I could put it. And Fox, a lot of people don't like the big noon game, but that was something that Fox pulled the trigger on, and it has worked. It has worked when it comes to ratings and to make their national advertisers happy. So I think the Big Ten has a better arrangement with their Big Ten network than the SEC schools have with the SEC network. The Big Ten schools own a slice equity. They paid out some of that equity already to help with that big hole that was created during COVID. But the Big Ten schools have a little bit of an ownership of the Big Ten network. The SEC schools do not have ownership of the SEC network. But when it comes to the ESPN's power in college sports. The exposure, the pounding of the same message over and over again. Fox cannot really touch ESPN as of today when it comes to the power of ESPN. They control college football playoffs. They control the top bowl games. So again, going back to your other question, there's a lot of pros and cons both ways. Great question, Helmer Henderson. Thank you so much. Indiana coach. The almighty Finn. Florida State had the guts to do what UNC want to. True, but UNC could not do what Florida State did. UNC didn't even have the ability to do what Florida State did. We'll get to that. Let me get to one more story that I think is important to hit upon before we get to the UNC cloak and dagger. Before we get on to the UNC cloak and dagger, we talked about the top 10 defensive tackles going into 2025, according to Pro Football Focus. The next story is, how is college football trying to rein in the wild west of transfers, make players pay to leave? Stuart Mandel, Ralph Russo of a couple days ago. We're going to go quickly through this. For 4 years, college coaches, administrators have lamented the wild, wild west nature of the transfer portal. Athletes hopping from school to school. Now some universities are invoking a new threat to keep their players. Leave and you'll owe us money. A lot of everyone. Not just some universities. Everybody's basically, especially in the Power Four, of course, adopting this. Programs are chasing that kind of leverage under the assumption that they will soon be in a position to directly sign athletes to NIL deals without having to depend on outside collectives or individual donors to make arrangements. They would gain that ability through that settlement we've been talking about. Schools would share as much as $20.5 million of revenue with their athletes in the next school year if the settlement is approved by a federal judge in California. It is scheduled on April 7th. Many schools during the recent winter portal cycle used that anticipated revenue to make school-funded NIL deals that would go into effect only if the House settlement is approved. The Athletic reviewed redacted copies or was briefed in the terms of several Power Four schools' proposed or finalized contracts, which was shared on the condition of anonymity due to the private nature of the contracts. And again, I was given a contract. Maybe I'll get back into that later. While there is no such thing as a standardized NIL contract, all contain language intended to deter the player from entering the portal. I'm going to skip a paragraph here. One Big 12 school required the athlete to pay a buyout equal to 50% of his remaining compensation if he transferred before the end of the deal's term. An ACC school required the athlete to pay back 100% of his earnings if he transferred before January 31st, 2026. One Big Ten player's contract, based on a suggested template the conference sent to all of its members, requires the athlete to pay liquidated damages in the event he transfers. Another defers 2/3 of the athlete's payment for the coming season until the end of January, after the winter portal window closes. They can't stop players from moving from school to school, says NIL attorney Mitt Winter. But the buyout clause is an attempt to limit that by making players have to pay back money to the school if they want to get out of the contract. again, ladies and gentlemen, and I keep pounding on this table over and over and over again, whatever we're going to get to here, when it comes to college football, when it comes to college athletics, it ain't going to be quite totally professional and it ain't going to be amateur. It's going to be something in the middle. These contracts with these players, if a player for the Cincinnati Bengals signs a 4-year contract, guess what? He's playing for Cincinnati for 4 years. Or he could sit out. He can demand a trade. But he's going to have less freedom than a Cincinnati Bearcat player. Because the Cincinnati Bearcat player is a student at the University of Cincinnati. And student athletes, just like students, you cannot stop them from joining a different university, from moving on to a different university. This is never going to be quite like the professional leagues, in my opinion. However, players getting higher compensation, a whole lot more money. There's going to be some type of contracts. Now, again, these are not under any CBA. There's not been collective bargained. It's not. Hopefully, these student athletes get smart to the point where they're going to have representation when they sit down at the table, somebody next to them before they sign the documents. But there are contracts. And I don't blame these universities, these athletic departments, one bit for making sure that they get compensation coming back to them if the player leaves, just like if a defensive coordinator leaves, just like an offensive coordinator leaves, just like if a head coach leaves. Some type of compensation is going to come back. I'm all for the student athlete. I'm all for the football players. I'm all for a collective bargaining agreement. Not going to get it anytime soon. But this is the real world now. If you sign that contract, sure, you can leave, but depending on the language of the contract, you or most likely the school that you're going to go to is going to have to kick some money back to the university that just lost you. This is the real world. It's going to be coming up. Shane Burnham, a former FBS defensive line coach, who is now director of football for the Ascension Sports Consulting, said he recently reviewed the contract of a player signed with an ACC school in January. The deal included a clause where the player would have to forfeit 50% of the money he received if he entered the portal in April. Again, it's predatory what these schools are doing, Burnham said. Industry sources say the practice did not become prevalent until the most recent transfer portal cycle, when programs' general managers began negotiating NIL contracts directly. In the past, schools were more mindful of maintaining separation between school and the outside collective, but that's gone by the wayside with the advent of revenue sharing. There's just so much money, said Walker Jones, executive director of the Grove Collective, which supports the Ole Miss. It got to the point where the collectives and the schools felt they had to be protected. Of course. You're not going to be given all this higher compensation with no protection. Right? Now, does it have to be predatory? Does it have to be 50 to 75%? Again, this is the real world now. If that player wants to negotiate it down, depending on how wanted that player is, again, the real world. When I used to go for job interviews and negotiate a price, negotiate my contract, I became a consultant in the commercial print industry. It was negotiation time. I did not always get what I want, and they didn't either. This is the world of higher compensation. You're getting a scholarship, right? You're getting medical. Not long term. You should get that. That should be part of the collective bargaining. But for now, you're not getting it. You sit down, you negotiate. If you do not like school A's offer, go to school B, go to school C, go to school D. And if you've only got one offer, well, guess what? That is the real world. That's it, baby. That's it. Depending on your perceived value, your perceived talent. You know, in school, when I would sing, I would do these vocals, I would do these solos, I would sing at the church and everything, at school. I would go in to musical tryouts. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Do you think I got the opportunity to get the number one spot in the musical? Hell no. Right? I had to play some character off at the edge of the stage where you couldn't even see the person. They moved the fat guy from Minnesota at the edge of the stage with this loud singing voice. They pushed me as far. They didn't have me at the center of the stage. If you are perceived a higher talent, you got more leverage in those negotiations. But this is the real world. The real world. If you don't want to sign that paper, don't sign that paper. And hopefully we'll get collective bargaining at some point. It remains to be seen whether the protection is realistic. Wisconsin set the tone for this new era, but then again, it's not official yet. Remember, the House versus NCAA settlement is not official. When it refused to enter cornerback Xavier Lucas' name in the portal after Lucas had signed a 2-year NIL deal. Lucas still left the program, enrolled at Miami, which Wisconsin subsequently accused of tampering of Lucas. A request to enter the transfer portal after entering into such an agreement is inconsistent with representations and mutual understanding of the agreement and explains the reasoning for not processing a transfer portal request under these circumstances. Well, I disagree with Wisconsin. I said it from the beginning. These players are going to be able to move on. But when we're getting to the future here, before they put the chin strap on, put the helmet on, and play for another school, some, depending on the contract, the language, and the negotiations, there is going to be some compensation coming back to the school that lost the player, per the contract. Okay. The schools are asserting that these contracts are licensing agreements and don't make the athletes employees, echoing a red line for the NCAA and universities. They also say that the payments are not for athletes to attend the university or to play for it, even as they try to disincentivize players from leaving. There is a whole lot of contradiction from the universities and NCAA on that part. Several figures interviewed for this story speculated or assumed that schools that sign transfers, rather than the players themselves, would be expected to pick up the tab for the buyout, which I said earlier. It's basically a carbon copy of what happens with coaches, said Winter. That is, I believe, going to be the reality officially, as we get into July, August, September, and especially the next high school recruiting class and then your next portal class. They all have employment contracts that say you can't coach anywhere else, but if you want to break the contract, here's what you have to pay. It's almost always the new school that pays the buyout. In interviews with several athletic directors, football general managers, and lawyers all sounded skeptical that the buyout provisions concerning transferring could actually be enforced. Our preference wouldn't be wouldn't be to be the first school to have to take a kid to court, chase down your 25 or 50,000, said an ACC football administrator. But the student athlete would be aware that, hey, I signed this contract, and if I go in the portal, here's a chance I might owe this money back. Theoretically, this kid isn't getting paid to play still, said Big 12 general manager, whose program did not include a buyout. So when push comes to shove, if it gets litigated, you're not going to win that. Now, I see the advantage of potentially using it as a scare tactic to keep players. They don't know better. But the second any agent gets involved, they'll just bypass it. The first team that sues a kid, I'd like to see their next recruiting class, said a second Big 12 general manager. 3 agents told The Athletic they've insisted the buyouts be removed or reduced from their clients' deals. However, many players do not have agents and may be unaware that this is a possibility. Winter said schools need to be careful, of course, not to insist on such a high buyout, then it might be deemed a penalty, which a court would not enforce, rather than a reasonable estimate of damages. Meanwhile, it's believed that most schools' NIL contracts this cycle were only 1-year deals. Star quarterbacks may be a notable exception. If there are buyout clauses and remaining payments owed might be minimal. Multi-year contracts would make the buyouts more prohibitive and, in theory, decrease roster attrition. But as tempting as it may sound to lock down players, in reality, schools may want their own roster flexibility. If there's a buyout, it's usually both ways, said a first Big 12 GM. So it would limit our freedom just to cut the kid if he doesn't turn out to be good, which would be especially pronounced at a school with a coaching change. A new football hire would invariably want to bring his guys, but may be stuck with some well-paid underperformers who know they won't make more elsewhere. After 4 years of seemingly never-ending chaos and relentless legal challenges, the NCAA president, Charlie Baker, and others have been hoping the House settlement would bring much-needed stability to the NIL space. Collectives are not likely to disappear. If anything, they might help programs spend more than $20.5 million. The Power Four conferences have enlisted Deloitte to serve as a clearinghouse for all deals above 600. And finally, in the article, as it pertains to transfers, though, any sense of order does not feel imminent. I'm not sure my expectation is that the current revenue sharing contracts would change the transfer flow, said Nebraska Athletic Director Troy Dannon. It hasn't shown to be that way yet. Okay, so a big time article from The Athletic on player contracts. I thought it was important for us to hit that because, again, player contracts are going to be part of our college football discussion, not only on this college football YouTube channel, but others. I don't really truly believe that a player contract is going to be basically nothing, like the second half of what this article talked about. There is going to be a commitment. If the school says we are paying you this much, that school is going to have to pay you that much as a player because it's in the contract. I am no lawyer. I want a collective bargaining agreement. I don't want labor to be, I don't want them to be victims. But I also don't believe in this complete total power of the labor either. In these articles, and I've said this before, there is a lot of voices out there in this discussion, and I don't have the answers. I want a collective bargaining agreement, but for a lot of different reasons. One of it's the most important for me is labor in the schools and the institutions get representation, and it becomes flexible. Like 5 years from now, it might have to change. Labor might want this. Ownership might want that. And they bargain over it. It's the flexibility of it. But I also know that there are voices out there who are getting paid by agents. And my God, they are everywhere. And I know they're getting paid and they're pushing a message and they want complete total freedom and they want 365-day free agency and they say they want collective bargaining, but I don't even think they want collective bargaining, to be honest with you, because they believe they can set up a world in which they got more freedom, more power than NFL players. So there is predatory stuff going on from universities, but there is this other side that is so unbelievably aggressive in pushing what they're trying. And there's a lot of money being spent because these agents they're taking control and they are loving it. They don't even want it. Should I go there? Maybe I won't. Maybe I won't go right now all the way there. But anyways, so I'm trying to keep a balance here. I want a collective bargaining. I don't want predatory on labor on these student athletes because they are taking advantage. And it can't be completely professional. It can't be. These students are going to have to be able to leave. But again, it can't be all one way either. It just can't, or this sport will not survive. That's my opinion. Put down your opinion in the comment section. And then I'm going to go through some very kind super chats here. And then we are going to get into the UNC. Cloak and dagger. Cloak and dagger. Did the SEC pay for the SEC network like ACC had to pay for the ACC network? SEC schools and ACC schools had to pay for infrastructure, but they did not have to put money in they had to pay for the infrastructure at their own institutions. But all of them did. Alabama did, ACC schools did. But they did not have to, the Big Ten schools paid in. Fox was the sugar daddy to build the network. Big Ten schools had to pay into it, spend their money, go back. The first 5 or 6 years of Big Ten revenue, Big Ten network revenue had to get kicked back to Fox. Every school has had it done that. Maryland did it. Rutgers did it. Nebraska did it. Penn State, everybody did it. Everybody. Minnesota did it. Purdue did it. The original schools did it. Everybody did it until UCLA and USC. They got in as full members and they don't have to pay back. One of those negotiations that went back and forth with USC and the Big Ten. SEC did not have to do that, but then again, they don't owe any equity of the network. ACC did not have to do that, but they don't own any network equity of the network. Thank you, Hammer Henderson, once again for your great questions and for your incredible generosity. Thank you so very much. Kerry Gold knows Florida State and Clemson had the balls to get the lawsuit started. And they will also benefit the most by getting the most money from the ACC until they decide to leave. I agree. They did have the balls. Absolutely. It came with some cost. And that's why it took some balls, because it came with some cost. Not just litigation costs, but relationship costs. And we're going to hit that next. They also will benefit the most in the ACC until they decide to leave or until someone decides to take them. It's a two-way street, right? Thank you, Kerry Golden Nose, for your incredible generosity once again. It took a lot of balls for Florida State and Clemson to do what they did. Now, UNC could not have done, even if they had the balls, as you would say, Kerry Golden Nose. They did not have the ability to pull that off. Okay, thank you for the super chats, guys. I appreciate it. We're going to go into, hopefully I haven't missed any. Nope, we got them all. Okay, we're going to go into this North Carolina cloak and dagger. It started a long time ago. It continues on. Cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. Let's go back. Again, the title screen is what Bubba Cunningham said August 3rd, 2023. A lot of schools, a lot of individuals are going to have to make decisions about what their future look like, he said. I don't see this configuration lasting in perpetuity. Okay? He's talking about he doesn't see the ACC lasting like it is, like it's set up. Now, this was August 3rd, 2023. To be honest with you, he said that on June 30th, 2022. He said it in 23. He said it in 22. He talked to Jim Delaney. Those text messages were released per FOIA request from, I believe, Brian Murphy down in Carolina. Let's go back to the original article. The original article, Andre Adelson, on August 3rd, 2023. Hold on. Bubba Cunningham critical of the comments from Florida State president. Let me pop this up here so people can actually read it. Okay. North Carolina Athletic Director Bubba Cunningham, again, this was August 3rd, 2023, took exception Thursday to the way Florida State has publicized its willingness to leave the ACC. In an interview with 99.9 The Fan in Raleigh, North Carolina, Cunningham responded to comments Florida State President Richard McAuliffe made during a Board of Trustees meeting Wednesday. McAuliffe told the board the Seminoles would very seriously consider leaving the ACC unless there is a radical change to the conference revenue distribution model. Well, there happened to, now we do have a radical change to the conference revenue distribution model. Florida State's got their victory, right? Bubba Cunningham did not like how it was publicized that Florida State was willing to leave the ACC. Again, this is August 3rd, 2023. The court case, that stuff did not happen until December of 2023. This is Bubba Cunningham just reacting to what Richard McAuliffe said in public. I don't think it's good for a league for them to be out there barking like that, Cunningham said on the Adam Gold Show. I'd rather see them be a good member of the league, support the league, and if they have to make a decision, then so be it. Pay for the exit fee. Wait for your grant of rights that you've given, and then in 2036, when those rights return to you, do whatever you want. So Cunningham is criticizing Florida State, not just for going public, but even thinking about, look, you want to pay the exit fee, so be it. Wait for your grant of rights that you've given, and then in 2036. When those rights return to you, do whatever you want. And then, of course, the article goes through any school that wants to leave the conference would have to pay a $120 million. Okay. Cunningham underscored this point. Every school in the league willingly entered in the grant of rights agreement when it signed the deal in 2016. Earlier in the week, Florida State Board of Trustees Chair Peter Collins told warchant.com that the grant of rights will not be the document that keeps us from taking action. Cunningham countered that in his interview on 99.9 The Fan. When you have a general counsel and the university president and the board of trustees says, I'm a member of this conference, and you sign a document that says I'm granting my rights to you, and you have my authority to negotiate my rights to a network, and the league does that on your behalf. I'm not sure how you can just say, just kidding, I didn't like the deal that was struck, and now I want to get out of it, he said. Any contract, it obligates you to what you agreed to on the front end, so I am scratching my head wondering what you are talking about. Again, Cunningham is taking shots at Florida State in every single manner. You're coming out in public. You're not going to get your grant of rights back to 2036. We signed our rights over to the conference so they can negotiate based on our authority for you to negotiate my rights to a network. As for solving the ongoing question about generating revenue and distributing it differently to try and closing the growing gap with the SEC and the Big Ten, Cunningham added, everyone would like to have more money and everyone would like to win more. PATC money shot number 1 of this article coming up right now. I don't think you have to have the most money to win the most games, and I think we've demonstrated that over the years. Cunningham, I don't think you have to have the most money to win the most games. I think we've demonstrated that over the years. And it is why we're doing this live show on Selection Sunday. Bubba Cunningham said this on August 3rd, 2023. Yeah, you know what? You don't have to have the most money to win. But again, your margin of error gets smaller and smaller and smaller. We are witnessing today what is going on in men's basketball. We are seeing the ACC hoping to get 4 teams into the dance. We are looking at a Greg Sankey who's going around to every media outlet and is pounding the table saying, 14, I think 14. I think we're going to get 14. We should get 14. I think most of us would say the SEC is going to get 12 or 13 teams in. Maybe they get 14, maybe only 11, but I think 12 and 13 are the chalk. But that is the difference from now versus when Bubba Cunningham said this on August 3rd, 2023. That's the money shot number 1. That's not the only money shot of this 17-month article that I want us to go back and remember today. Money shot number 2. North Carolina, like nearly every school in the ACC, has had its legal counsel look over the grant of rights document and had discussions about what to do should another wave of conference realignment happen. To that end, Cunningham was not optimistic that the ACC would last in its current form. They looked at it. They probably saw a bunch of weaknesses to it. Cunningham was not optimistic. This was before Florida State took ACC to the courts and vice versa. Clemson taking ACC to the courts, vice versa. And then money shot number 3, once again, a lot of schools, a lot of individuals are going to have to make decisions about what their future looks like. He said, I do not see this configuration lasting in perpetuity. Bubba Cunningham. I want to get back to this front part just real quick. North Carolina Athletic Director Bubba Cunningham took exception Thursday to the way Florida State has publicized its willingness to leave the ACC. Bubba Cunningham took shots at Florida State. Having said that, when Florida State sued the ACC, when ACC sued Florida State, more importantly, North Carolina did not vote in favor of the ACC suing Florida State. They did not vote in favor. Everyone else did, not North Carolina. North Carolina did not vote in favor of the ACC expansion. They did not vote in favor of taking in Stanford, SMU, and California. North Carolina has been playing cloak and dagger this whole time, and they will continue to play it. The reports that came out August of 24, now remember, the article we just went through was August of 23. The articles that came out in August of 24, College Football Peek Around the Corner, our own reporting of June, in July, and August of 24, was all accurate. There was a cost to what Florida State and Clemson did. They got a major victory. We at Peek Around the Corner believe they're going to get what they need out of this. Eventually, they're going to get to that stratification line. They're too big of brands. They're too valuable. But North Carolina, I believe here, I said it then, I'm going to say it now, North Carolina was playing to Bubba Cunningham was playing to an audience of 2. Bubba Cunningham was playing to an audience of 2. When he went on these shows on August 3rd, 2023, and expressed disappointment with Florida State and how they were acting publicly. Bubba Cunningham was playing to an audience of 2. One of his audience he was playing to was Greg Sankey, the SEC presidents. The other audience that he was playing to was Petiti, the Big Ten, and the Big Ten presidents. The reporting in which Florida State and Clemson, they were looked at, especially Florida State, not being looked at as a good partner. Now, Florida State's got some time to smooth all that over, right? Florida State's working on a lot of things right now. So is Clemson. 2 biggest, most valuable brands, football brands, outside of the P2, if you don't include Notre Dame, is Florida State and Clemson. But all this came at a cost. And I believe that Bubba Cunningham, there's no question in my mind that Bubba Cunningham knew this. When Florida State first came out in February 24, 2023, and when Michael Alford first said it, North Carolina knew this. North Carolina's been playing good cop, bad cop throughout this whole thing. It's obvious. Right? It's obvious. They're playing to an you can't do. But Bubba Cunningham also said, yeah, this ain't going to last. This ACC is not going to last. North Carolina, they were the ones between Mike Gusowich and Bubba Cunningham, the former chancellor of North Carolina, they were the ones who were talking about completely dissolving the ACC. to make a new conference. Bubba Cunningham was talking to Mike Gustowicz about that. We saw the text messages or the emails. I think those were emails, allegedly. FOIA requests. Brian Murphy, we've seen all that. WRAL, North Carolina. We saw the communication between Jim Delaney and Bubba Cunningham on June 30th, 22, where Jim Delaney was telling Bubba Cunningham to be patient, to be patient. You know that Jim Delaney has been talking to Bubba Cunningham this whole time, allegedly. North Carolina could not litigate. They didn't even have the ability to do it. That wasn't even going to be part of their equation. But they could play the nice cop. They could play to the SEC into the Big Ten. But internally, they were looking for all sorts of ways for this configuration not to go on in perpetuity. This ACC configuration that cannot stand up to the Big Ten and SEC in value. They cannot remain in the conference. Same decision that Florida State and Clemson made. Good cop, bad cop. North Carolina is still, they're playing the cloak and dagger. We've learned recently that North Carolina spent $600,000 on Carolina Blue Matter. Powerful law firms working for North Carolina when it comes to conference affiliation. That's it. They've got one thing to work on. And they spent over $600,000, and none of it was on litigation, but it was all on future conference affiliation. Where was that money spent? I got a feeling, I've got no proof. I got a feeling that some of that had to do with communication, we've got a little proof. Communication, asking proof, massaging the communication line between UNC Chapel Hill and the Board of Governors. I mean, that's a whole lot of money to spend on conference affiliation to a powerful law firm. And of course, that it continues to go on today. It's more than $600,000. That did not stop. It definitely did not stop after the ACC settlement. So let's not kid ourselves here. Now, you might be saying, well, who cares? None of that matters, Greg. What matters is now. Okay. What matters is now. I am going to take a step back here before we get to your phone calls. All this UNC talk is useless. I want to bring up something here. Remember when we were when there was an article that came out, CNBC, talking about private equity valuations. Hold on here, I got to clean something up. CNBC, they asked a group of people, and they went and they took numbers, they took all the metrics. We'll get into it in a moment here. They went through all sorts of metrics, and they were looking at perceived private equity, what they thought the perceived private equity valuations would be of the top 75 universities, 75 athletic departments. Do you remember that? Where CNBC. Now, the list came out, and of course, a lot of people had a lot of problems with the list. I reported at the time, I talked to somebody, and they looked at the list, and they said, well, yeah, depending on who you ask, you're going to have a different rankings. You're going to have different money associated to these different universities. But this person happened to check around, and basically, while the rankings would not be the same, what CNBC did, what these people did for CNBC was pretty accurate. Like it was, if you're ranked in the 30s, let's say, in this rankings, the valuation rankings, you're probably going to be ranked somewhere in the 30s if you brought the next batch of private equity people in talking to industry sources within college athletics. It's like you belong in a certain batch, and how you how you get ranked, your school gets ranked in that batch can change, but there's not going to be drastic ranking changes. This person that I was talking to, 2 days ago, I had another conversation with another person, a reporter, talking about, not about private equity valuations, but about, I was poking and prodding on, is there something, just poking and prodding, right? About conference affiliation, ACC settlement, and what could happen next. And the reporter said to me that, Greg, you should take a look back. Now, this was the second person. That wasn't the person a couple months ago. This person a couple days ago said, you should take a look back at that CNBC evaluations of private equity. Because those evaluations, because this reporter had talked with people who created that rankings. And that was based upon, well, let me show you. It was based upon some criterias, but it was based upon your conference affiliation, because this reporter and other people don't think people are going to be, the SEC is not breaking up, the Big Ten is not breaking up. I'm going to show you right now. This list is reflective of the current enterprise value of each program, starting with a base revenue multiple of 4 for all institutions, and then adjusting for multiple variables including conference affiliation, estimated NIL spend, school subsidies, number of alumni, and other factors that can catalyze future growth and profitability. This was compiled. Where is that? It was a question that CNBC set out to answer after speaking with people in the private equity world. I'm not getting what I want. Anyways, okay, so here are the valuations. And we're not going to go through them all. We did this a couple months ago. But talking to this reporter of a couple days ago, he goes, you can, when you're, this is a different metrics, right? Different metrics than your presidents would use, your commissioner would use when trying to evaluate your next expansion candidates. This is the metrics that private equity would come in with billions and billions and billions of dollars. They want to make sure that they have high growth, potential high growth assets within their Super League so they can make their money back, right? So this is not completely to be used for expansion candidates. Because expansion candidates, if you're not talking about Super League, if you're not talking about private equity coming in, then you're only really talking about your presidents who they would want and your media partners who they could afford, right? But again, he wanted to show me something here. So if you would pretend for a moment that this would be used, because this is what this reporter was telling me, if this ranking would to be used by presidents, by the SEC and the Big Ten, let's just talk about the SEC and the Big Ten. They're potential candidates for expansion. If they use this list, this would be heavily leaned towards the media companies' potential future of using private equity, private capital, if that's what the SEC and the Big Ten thinks the future is going to be hold, and less on those other intangibles like research, university, academics, relationships, okay? So this list would be heavily leaning towards one direction. So Ohio State, now we're just going to look at potential SEC Big Ten expansion candidates. Ohio State, Big Ten, Texas SEC, Texas A&M SEC, Michigan SEC, Alabama SEC, Notre Dame, okay, obviously Notre Dame, right? Georgia, Big Ten, Nebraska, Big Ten, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Penn State, Southern California, Louisiana, Florida, Wisconsin, Clemson. Right? Clemson is the first one to pop up that's not in the Big Ten and the SEC if we don't talk about Notre Dame. And we're not going to talk about Notre Dame right now, okay? Clemson, number one on the list. If you're looking at those things that drive potential earnings because of their incredible brand, football brand, they generate money, they generate income, a lot of tickets. And then this also goes into alumni base and everything else. But this would lean more to the economic side, this would lean more to the economic side and less to the academic side of the valuations for the SEC and the Big Ten. Clemson, mighty powerful, right? And then you're looking at a bunch of SEC. Stanford, right? This is taking in their market, their money in that market, the demographics. We know there's not a whole lot of viewership there, but again, Stanford, boom, 23 overall. Number 2 behind Clemson. Florida State, again, right there. So Clemson, Stanford, Florida State, right? These are the schools that we normally talk about when we talk about potential expansion for the Big Ten and the SEC. And this list is more on the economic side of the ledger. Then look at Duke. Look at Duke. And this is the economic side of the ledger. You know, Moen from College Football Mafia Show has gotten word that Duke is one of those dark horses that you got to keep an eye on for the Big Ten. If North Carolina gets taken by the SEC, Duke's candidacy is maybe a little bit higher than we thought. And if you take a look at this list, that's not even considering so much the AAU and the incredible research Duke has and all that stuff that Big Ten presidents would be interested in, like they were interested in Washington, for example. That is a pretty good valuation for Duke. And then, of course, Miami. We often talk about Miami's valuation. We talk about Miami being a Big Ten candidate for very good reason. So it's the same schools that are being talked about on this list, mostly, except for, Duke is an example, and Texas Tech. That is a big one, right? Now, if you look at Texas Tech, when it comes to academics, they're trying to get there. They're emerging research university. Someday they're trying to get to AAU, trying to get Big Ten's attention on that. But if you just look at the economic side, the potential economic side, this is private equity, a group of people looking at it. Other people may have a little bit different. And then you got Kansas, you got TCU, and then you got UNC Chapel Hill at 40. So North Carolina is in the top 40, right? And that is just looking at the economic side of the equation. And then, of course, you got the other side with North Carolina is going to have high interest. Georgia Tech 47, Iowa State 48, Baylor 44, and there is Virginia at 45. So if you're just looking at economic private equity interest, North Carolina's 40 and Virginia's 45. Pretty good. And Duke is 26. I just wanted to illustrate that because, again, there are universities out there that they bring a lot to the table. They bring a lot of potential to the table. And of course, private equity is if private equity is ranking the school's valuations, it's going to be different in how the presidents rank their candidates, of course. But I just want to kind of compare. Look, some of these institutions are probably a little bit higher on the economic valuation. If private equity would come in, private equity would want a Duke. Now, if I said, before I showed you that, if I said that private equity is going to come in, or think about private equity coming in and making a 40-team football league, college football league, and private equity would have the say-so, and the Big Ten and the SEC would be powerless because private equity is bringing all this money in, I don't think any of you would have Duke in the top 40, right? Anyways, let's get on to you. I have been babbling for an hour and 37 minutes. Holy smokes. Let's get to your phone calls. Talk about anything in college football. I know you all want to watch Selection Sunday. You can talk about the cloak and dagger of North Carolina. You can talk about the top 10 defensive tackles that we went through. You can talk about the player contracts, the predatory angle that these universities, athletic departments are going after these student athletes. Whatever angle, whatever opinion you've got, let me know. Let it rip. The phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. I just wanted to have a live show of football before you all went and watched your college basketball Selection Sunday.
From
Rick?
Rick is on the line. The floor is yours. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. You?
I'm doing good. I know everyone's getting ready for Selection Sunday, but I just wanted to do this live show to give everybody a little bit of a football vitamin shot before you watch that basketball. Go ahead, sir.
Well, it's going to be, St. Patty's Day tomorrow, and spring is 3 days later, so, yeah, let's talk football.
Yep.
Let's have a little dialogue. Let's work with the assumption that House gets approved on April 7th, and then on July 1st, your beloved Gophers are going to start paying out the full $20.5 million? Yes or no?
Yes. Mark Coyle just talked about it a few days ago. They are going to go $20.5 million. I got to tell you, though, The Gophers are struggling to get there. They're gonna do the 20.5 mil. Supposedly 3 or 4 million of that. You know what? I better not talk about. I'm not sure that's public.
3 or 4 million to hockey. We know.
Okay. They're gonna do it. They said it in public, but man, they are struggling. They're putting off some stuff. They're putting off some renovations. A few $1 million renovations to Williams Arena, which is, I don't know how old that basketball arena is, over 100 years old. So they're putting off some stuff to get to that 20.5 mil.
And that kicks in on July 1st.
We believe so. Yeah. Yep.
So I would ask you, after that happens, we'll assume it happens, the people that receive that money, that 20.5 million, why are they not employees?
Why are they not employees?
Why are they not employees of the University of Minnesota?
Because the University of Minnesota don't want them to be employees.
It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. You can want them not to be. It's good to want, but convince me why they're not.
I am not going to convince. I want them to be employees. I'm just saying Minnesota stated and everybody else, none of these universities want their students to become employees, and I don't have the legal mind to tell you either way.
Well, we both know why they don't.
I'm guessing because one of the reasons I'm guessing they don't want to be on the responsible for long-term medical care and all these other reasons. But
well, the biggest reason is they don't want to pay taxes.
Oh, okay. All right.
But that doesn't really matter to the IRS.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't get anybody to tell me why they're not employees.
I don't know, sir. The players are going to be. I mean, I know what you're saying about the universities, but the players are going to be paying taxes. Well,
oh, absolutely.
Some of them won't be paying state taxes, I guess. But
I pay taxes.
But some of these guys aren't going to be paying state taxes on their collective money because some of these states have passed state laws that these players don't have to pay state taxes. But,
no, I'm talking about the business that's paying them.
Yeah.
And the business is the University of Minnesota.
Yeah.
The University of Minnesota has employees, right?
They sure do. They got a lot of them. It's a big university. And it's scattered all over the state, not just in the Twin Cities.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've made my point there. The other thing that's really bothering me is, for the longest time we've always been told, oh, this is the Wild West, the Wild, Wild West. Right?
Yeah.
Why is it, and I'll just use the ACC as an example, and it's because you brought them up earlier in the show, with 2 different contracts and 2 different schools where one has them paying 50% of their, whatever their agreement was if the kid leaves, and the other school had 25% payback if they leave. Why can't the schools in the ACC all get together and agree on one contract?
On one contract?
Yeah.
Well, because they probably want to compete against each other and offer better deals than the other school when trying to get that player.
Oh, they want the same thing the students want.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Okay, now I understand.
I'm presuming that's one of the reasons. Like, you know.
Oh, I said, no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I'm just making the point. You see, it's the wild, wild west for the schools, too.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Yep.
I just want I want that contract to mean something, though. That's my point. Like, you know, if a school signs a contract with a player, that school better deliver on what that contract says. Like,
Well, it's the same. It's the same as the national letter of intent used to be.
well, if the school says, if in that contract, if the school says we're going to pay you $165,000 this year and next year, if you, as long as you keep your grades, so you're passing, and if you're not violating, you know, local laws and whatever, you know, the character stuff, as long as you're doing what you need to do in the classroom and in the community, we're going to pay you $165 this year and $165 next year. That school better pay that player $165 this year and $165 next year, and they can't just go and cut them. If they cut them, they still got to pay them. That, I want that to be the commitment from the school. And then if the player, if he signs it, I want him to play those 2 years. And if he doesn't, if you want to change schools, which he's going to be able to because you're a student, you're not a professional. I mean, you're not, even though you're getting high compensation, or some of them are. If you go, I mean, if there's a buyback in that contract, that money's going to have to go back to that university. You know, there's got to be some accountability both ways. There just has to be.
That's what I was saying earlier.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason you can't do that throughout the entire conference. You can negotiate different numbers, but all the enforcement rules will be the same within the conference.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And supposedly, and if Rick is the left guard of Tulane, if Tulane pays you $80,000, Rick, that is supposedly going to go to some sort of enforcement arm. All the money that Tulane is paying in their rev share, all that money is not going to be publicly disclosed to us, but it's going to be disclosed to the enforcement arm to make sure that Tulane is not spending over $20.5 million in rev share. So whatever you're getting paid, Rick, as a left guard or right guard, I can't remember what position I had you at, that is going to get reported upward to somewhere. And
that's a clearinghouse, huh?
Well, I don't, like, the clearinghouse is the I don't know if Deloitte is doing the clearinghouse and making sure that everyone is at 20.5 or lower in rev share. The clearinghouse to me is, Rick, you're making $80,000 in your rev share with Tulane, but now you're looking at trying to get paid over $600. You're trying to get paid $1,200 for 4 months for putting your face on the glass wall of a Quick Trip gasoline stations all over New Orleans. You're going to get paid $1,200 for that. That agreement between you and Quick Trip and the collective at Tulane, that's going to go through the clearinghouse, and the clearinghouse is going, is Rick worth $1,200 if his face gets put up on the glass at all these quick trip stations, gas stations in New Orleans? Is he worth $1,200? Okay, we say he is. That goes through. We say he doesn't. You're going to have to renegotiate it. I think that's what the clearinghouse is going to do. That is a very cool.
The clearinghouse regulates NIL.
Yeah.
And somebody else.
I don't know.
Some other entity regulates.
I don't know. I don't know if
Right,
Deloitte
sure.
does both or just one. If somebody knows, let me know in the comment section.
And then the other question I have is why isn't at public schools? Why isn't this public disclosure? I can understand Tulane being a private, or Stanford.
I want that public. I want that public for so many
But
reasons. As a football fan,
private schools don't do it.
as a football fan, I want that public. As a selfish person, Rick, as a host of a college football peek around the channel, I want that public. I want you and I to argue about Texas Tech field goal kicker not making enough money. That's what I want you and I to argue about. Go ahead, sir.
Here's how we team up to fight together. If they're not employees, make it public. But if they are employees, you can go ahead and keep it private on the rev share.
Yeah.
Because nobody is entitled to know anybody's personal income if they choose not to share it.
Yeah.
But if it's a public university paying out money, we all know how much the coaches make and the professors make and the president of the university makes.
Yeah. Alrighty, sir. Anything else?
No, I gave my beef. Thanks.
You got it. I appreciate it, sir. Great call once again, Rick. Beautiful. Again, we're doing a live show just to slip in before college basketball selection show for the dance.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, can you hold on for a moment, please?
Yes, sir.
Steel Austin, what is the stadium in Greg's background? I think it's a fake stadium. I don't think it's a real stadium. This is an actual, this is not digital. This is an actual cloth up against a wall. Got that the very first day we started the YouTube channel. I keep thinking I'm going to change the background. I am going to change the background. It's going to be, well, I'll let you know, but I am so busy. I can't even think about, I can't even pull the trigger on any of that. We are going to change this, but yeah, this is not digital. This is a cloth. It's worked out pretty good, but it's time for a change. BJ, thanks for calling, my man. The floor is yours.
What's up, Greg? As always, thanks for allowing me to speak on your platform. I haven't been on in a while. I've been kind of busy. But no better time than to speak football during the middle of basketball season.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to slip one in here before you guys settle down for the selection show.
We're thankful that you did, because as much as I like college athletics, I love basketball, college basketball. It's always the appetizer. It's always to football, in my opinion. No disrespect to college basketball fans.
Yeah. But
it's not college football. So I want to talk about a few things, and I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. But as the guy Rick talked about before, I wasn't planning on speaking on this, but he brought up a good point. And what I take from that, there's a lot more questions and answers out there at this moment in time in the process. But I think the questions he posed are very solid and legit questions, and only people in suits behind closed doors know that answer. But it will be nice and it will get to a point where there's more clarity in the whole, football ecosystem. And I would imagine around 2030 will be that time. Before then, I think it'll be like it is now. But I wanted to bring up the Florida State settlement, ACC settlement, and I don't know if you remember or not. You probably don't remember. But when we first had this discussion a year and a half ago, I assumed, based off what I knew and just common sense, based off the parties that be, 150 to 200 would be the settling point. And I simply said that because Florida State in 2021, 2022, at their spring meetings, Richard McCullough and the AD for Florida State at the time, it was a new AD, mentioned that, hey, other schools need to invest more in football, right? And they were basically kicked out of the room and just laughed at. Fast forward the clock 3-4 years later, the settlement, when I read over the settlement, was almost exactly what Florida State kind of leaned into 4 years ago. They wanted and I think they could have done a better job in rewording it. They wanted a disproportionate share. That disproportionate share, or unequal revenue sharing, was rebranded as brand initiative, but it's the same thing. And I'm glad that Florida State and Clemson, whoever wants to kind of make football the priority, got what they want. I don't know how you feel about that. I haven't checked into your episodes lately. I apologize, but I would love to hear your opinion on this, the result of the settlement. Who won, who you think lost, and the more important ramifications of it.
I've done many live shows. It was a massive, in fact, I labeled my live show massive victory for Florida State and Clemson. Massive. Yeah, absolutely. I had it pegged at 200 to 240 million. But more importantly, I had it at 200 to 240 million, but not this early, not in 25, not 165, not 165 at year 2025. So it was a massive victory, not only in the number, but how early they got it. Massive victory. Now, it did come with some costs. There is a cost associated. I think it's something that Florida State and Clemson can and will overcome, but there is some relationship costs. There is some not happy people about it and everything, how it went about and everything, but massive victories, absolutely. And the ramifications, I believe, are just humongous. That 165 going down $18 million next year, people have done the numbers on it. Wild Jute has done North Carolina or Florida State and Clemson especially. But North Carolina, even if you don't assume, and you cannot assume that they're going to have the viewership numbers of Florida State, because they're not in football. I mean, they might next year because of Belichick. But when you bring in success initiative and viewership number as part of your unequal revenue sharing, and you have Clemson playing Notre Dame every year, and Florida State playing Notre Dame 2 every 3 years, and you got Miami playing Notre Dame 2 every 3 years, you are going to have, for North Carolina, they're going to benefit economically to get out of the ACC and move to the SEC. The earlier, the better. The earlier, the better. Because every year that money drops $18 million, but you're making more than $18 million if you were in the SEC versus the ACC. And that doesn't even include, we're just talking media money payout. We're not talking more ticket sales, high sponsorship, in-stadium signage, and everything else. And then, so for North Carolina, now they've got a political question, right? They got the Board of Governors question. They've got a lot of questions, a lot of hurdles to overcome. And I anticipate it's not going to happen anytime soon. But economically, this was a massive victory. And I know Florida State and Clemson, they want North Carolina, they want that movement to happen, because then it's going to help them out to move out of the ACC. Massive victory.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, I think Florida State and Clemson should, thank Brett Yormark and his push for private equity. I think it pushed a lot of the other schools and commissioners in the ACC to kind of act. So I think that was, I don't know whether it was the factor, but I think it had to be a factor. For one, and for two, I agree with you. I think that North Carolina, and I think McCullough and the guys at FSU did this exercise a few years ago. And even if they were to come into the Big 12 as a half member, they will still make more money, and they would make that $150, $200 million up within like 5 years.
You're talking about Big 10. You said Big 12.
I'm not sure the Big 12, Big 10. I'm sorry, I apologize. The Big 10. And so I think it makes sense, and I think for the SEC, they will have to take NC State. I don't think that's even a question. If North Carolina goes, because I think SEC is based off rivalries and very intense rivalries, and the one of the most underrated rivalries in the country, I think, is the NC State North Carolina rivalry. It gets it's almost hatred at sometimes. Like it's a very unique, good rivalry. There's not a team running away with victories that kind of split it. But the Virginia Tech, I don't know whether they would be split or not, but it seems like that's kind of a package deal. But with that being said, I do like the way it's going. I don't know how soon things are going to kind of break and realignment is going to happen. If I had to guess, based off kind of what I know and just having a brain, 2028, 2027 will be kind of the time where we start hearing like legitimate movement and not just rumors online. And I'm curious to see about the relationship issues that mostly Florida State has. I don't think Clemson has as many relationship issues as Florida State. But I do have faith in McCullough. He comes from Harvard and he's well connected. Over 2/3 of the presidents of Big Ten schools, he has close relationships with. So hopefully that relationship with McCullough kind of soothes over other bad relationships that Florida State has. But whether it's the Big Ten or the SEC, I think Florida State will fit in nicely with either league. But with that being said, I'm going to get out of here, Greg. And as always, I appreciate you for giving me the time to speak my opinions on your platform.
You got it, BJ. Appreciate it, my man. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Great call by BJ. Appreciate it. We got a super chat from Ryan Willie, the evil Badger, the Wisconsin Badgers in the Big Ten championship basketball game. For the people pushing a Super League, what happens if their school goes from a blue blood to a bottom feeder? Be careful what you wish for. Again, and the whole idea of a Super League, the whole idea of the SEC and the Big Ten going away based upon the creation of the Super League still makes no logical sense to me or whatever. It doesn't make any sense. I've said that over and over again. A Super League created by the SEC and the Big Ten, expanding with some teams, possibly. But I do not believe the SEC, I don't see the SEC conference going away anytime soon, right? And I don't think the Big Ten is. Now, some people say, well, great, a Super League formation doesn't mean that the SEC and the Big Ten does go away. Okay. So then what does the Super League do? It keeps everybody in their same conference? Super League just brings in more money? And I mean, when people talk Super League, they're talking about so many different variations of it. It's very hard. If you're talking about the conferences remain the same, then what are we really talking about? I don't know. I don't want to be rude, but it seems like Super League has become like this magic potion I talked about in a live show a couple weeks ago. It's not going to solve. It's just a lot of big money wants to come in. A lot of big money want to come in. And it's going to come in some ways, in some form. But a Super League that makes the SEC go away, I don't even see how that's possible. Or this other idea that the Super League is just a football league. And the Big Ten will remain for basketball, baseball, hockey, blah, blah, blah. The SEC, it's only going to be football where we scramble all the teams together. 48, 60 teams. Again, how does that even work? Are you still going to have an SEC division in the Super League? And if that's a division of SEC teams, that's going to be the best division. So how are you going to do football playoffs? Like, if you go down that rabbit hole of a Super League only football, you come to the, like, it just isn't logical to me at all. I'll believe it when I see it. Now, a Super League, if you want to call it a Super League, with a Big Ten and the SEC expands some more, and in 5 or 6 years they do a breakaway. I hope they don't break away, but I can see some logic to that. I think it's a bad deal for college football. I think it's a bad deal for college football fans, but I can see logic to that. I've been saying that for 3 years. But the Super League that blows away conferences, I don't see it at all. Thank you, Ryan Willie. I appreciate the super chat. I appreciate your continued generosity to this channel. Me versus Echo Chamber BJ, my 25 telecommunication tariff. Thank you so much for your generosity, BJ, and your great phone calls and your friendship. You're great member of our channel. Thank you, BJ. I appreciate your incredible generosity. Thank you so very, very much. Elliot Howard has a trouble, has some issues. He has a lot of issues with my Minnesota Golden Gophers. Lots of issues. Lots of issues. My Minnesota Golden Gopher football team has been pretty good, Elliot. Pretty good. A lot better than I think you think they've been. So, I don't know. I do not know. Anyways. Minnesota not super. They should not be in a Super League. Who should Nebraska be in a Super League instead of Minnesota, Elliot? Should Nebraska be in a Super League instead of Minnesota? Yes or no, Elliot? Put it down in the chat. Yes or no? Should Nebraska be ahead of Minnesota in the Super League? Based upon results on the football field, not research, or on any other athletic field. Let me know. Elliot got his girl stolen by a goal. Minnesota has beaten Nebraska more often than Nebraska has beaten Minnesota in football in their entire series with each other over the last 100 years. Minnesota has defeated Nebraska more than Nebraska has beaten Minnesota since Nebraska has become a Big Ten member. Minnesota has beaten Nebraska 5 straight times. PJ Fleck owns Lincoln, Nebraska. And as bad as basketball has been for Minnesota Golden Gophers, at least we have some sort of history in basketball, unlike Nebraska, who's never won a tournament game. Let me know, Elliot. Should Nebraska be in this Super League and not Minnesota? You want me to continue? Do you want me to continue? There is one university. There is one university in the Big Ten that is scared of getting kicked out of the Big Ten. One university in which the president has said, and it was President Carter, now he's the president of Ohio State, President Carter of Nebraska, the former athletic director of Nebraska, the interim president of Nebraska, January 28, 2023, 3 different articles, Steve Sipple, Steve McEwen, all coming out saying Nebraska is worried that they're going to get kicked out of the Big Ten because they're not keeping up with the research dollars of the other institutions. Again, I ask you, who should be in this Super League, Nebraska or Minnesota, Mr. Elliott Howard? Okay, Elliott, you're going to be dropping a lot of teams and bringing up a lot of teams. Good luck to you, sir. Good luck to you. Anyways, I want to thank everyone who has donated to this channel today. Stephen McNeely, Morris Simmons, Helmer Henderson, Stormy Cyclone, Kerry Goldnose, Ryan Willie, me versus Echo Chamber BJ. Thank you guys so much for your incredible generosity. Thank you for the comments you put down in the comment section, the great phone calls. Once again, it's going to be a busy week. We got a busy week going on. Remember now, we got the potentiality of the Big 12 making a final deal, a private capital deal with Redbird Capital. Remember, we said, we were told, reported that we were weeks away from a final decision. I put out a post a couple days ago on X. Let me know if I can find it. Let me know if I can find it. Oh boy. This is what I put on March 14th, 2 days ago. Seriously starting to question if Yormark can get private capital deal done on Big 12 conference level over the goal line in the next few weeks. The latest teams suggest work still needs to be done in getting everyone rowing in the same direction. Longer commitment to the Big 12 equals private capital hurdle. I am not the first one. Look, there was Mike Kazaa, whatever, I can't pronounce his last name, but great reporter from West Virginia 247 who put it out there a few days before I did, that he's heard that they're still trying to herd everybody into this capital deal. It's not a done deal yet. I heard the same thing. Can they get it over the goal line in the next couple of weeks? We shall see. We are following that story. We are following the story what the 2026 playoffs are going to look like. 4 automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten, SEC, 2 for the Big 12 and ACC. We are following that story. We're also going to be, spring practices are starting they've already started for some teams. My Gophers, March 20th. We're going to be following reports coming out of spring practice all through the country. And again, of course, in the Holy Smokes Theater, the ACC drama, North Carolina, playing some cloak and dagger. We've got so many stories we're covering. Plus, we're going to keep talking about football. Last week, we did our way too early SEC rankings. Texas number 1. This week, we're going to do the Big 12. The week after that, we're going to do the Big 10. The week after that, the ACC. Way too early rankings. And then we'll make our adjustments in August. Football. Today, we talked about the top defensive tackles coming back for 25. So we cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please consider joining us here as a subscriber. Hit the subscribe button. If you've liked our content today, Smash the like button. I appreciate you all coming on in. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy your Sunday selection. Who is going to the dance? Who are the number one seeds? Who is going to be left out? First four in, first four out. Until next time. From all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.